Now, Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Always glad to have you with us talking about business and the economy during your weekend. Today we have kind of a double feature on the show. Later on, we're going to hear from some of the opponents of former Providence Mayor Joe Paolino's plan to add table games at the Newport Grand gaming complex. They have concerns about that down in the city by the sea, and we're going to hear those just a few months after we heard the pitch from Paolino. But first, we are going to talk to the CEO of Atrion Networking, Tim Hebert. They're a fast-growing tech company that you might have heard of, actually, and so we're going to have a conversation about that and how they've done that. Tim, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Ted.
So let's start off. People who haven't heard of your company, what do you do at Atrion?
So Atrion is an IT services company, and what we do is we help mid-sized companies solve business problems with technology.
Okay.
And predominantly networking, things that allow them to communicate better and more efficiently to all their offices and all their employees.
Now, when we say networking, for the people who aren't techies at home, we don't mean going to a party and trying to talk everybody up. What do we mean by networking?
So what we mean is all the wires and the wireless, equipment that gets put into our client's environment that allows them to communicate computer to computer, phone to phone, video, all that kind of stuff. We essentially allow people to network like at a party, but across their infrastructure.
So you're kind of doing the guts of the computer stuff we all use in our businesses.
Exactly.
Okay, so you guys have grown, as I said, quite a bit. You always make the lists, the PBN list, the Inc. magazine list of companies that have grown fast in Rhode Island. Can you give people a sense of how much growth you've seen at Atrion in the last few years or so?
Yeah, so the good news is that we've grown every year since we started in 1987. The last 5 years since the recession started has been a phenomenal growth year for us. We've actually tripled in revenue size over that year. We have just broken the $100 million revenue mark in June of this year. And we've doubled our employee count. We're about 250 employees collectively throughout our organization, most of them located here in the state of Rhode Island.
So people will probably be surprised we've had a couple companies on the last few months who talked about that they saw growth during the recession. You don't associate a recession with growth. How did you manage that? What was driving that?
Growing any company is a challenge in itself, and no matter if it's good times or bad times. But I think when you're in really tough times like we've faced the last 6 or 7 years, you have to focus on a couple of things. One of the things that we did, I think, really well, and we've done it through every recession, has been to really focus on our client base. We get closer to them. We try to understand the needs and challenges, because not only is our business being challenged, but they're being challenged. The more we can understand the problems they're having, the easier we can help them solve those problems. That's been one of our main tenets that we've used. The second tenet we've used is how do you actually cut and keep costs in control without damaging the organization. Many organizations, when they see tough times, they start to cut, and they usually cut too deep. They cut the bone, and the organizations can't recover fast enough when the economy does get a little bit better. The third thing we've always done is we've always made smart investments. And most people stop investments during recessions. We find ways to continue to invest in the right things that will continue us to grow. And last but not least, it's really about the culture and the people that you attract to your organization. You get great people who can do incredible things no matter what.
And you guys are doing some interesting thing on people, and we're going to talk more about that. But before we get off the question of growth, the other thing is it seems like there are a ton of companies in this space doing IT, trying to provide those services that are so crucial to so many companies now. And yet you guys clearly have hit on a way to get a lot of clients and get loyalty and really drive revenue up. What are you doing differently, if I'm sure something, from the other companies in this space?
I think there's two major things that we really do. The first thing is when we engage with a client, we really take the time to understand their business, the challenges they're facing, where they want to go strategically. Most organizations that are in IT, they're in it for the technology side of it, so they get really excited about the bits and bytes. We get really excited about how it can change and transform a business for our client. And that helps them make better decisions to grow their business, and that creates a level of loyalty that we see with our client base. And the second thing that we really do is that we surround our clients with people that are really knowledgeable and they really care about the success of the client. It's not just a job to them. They're passionately concerned about, will this make the client's life better or not? And I think those two things really have helped us differentiate ourselves from the competition out there.
Your corporate bio says, this quote stuck out to me, quote, Tim believes that there is more to business than simply turning a profit, and that every business should be driven by purpose and core values. It sounds nice, but how do you actually execute that? You do have to worry about the profit, of course.
Yeah, you do. I think, in everything you do in a business, you have to be frugal and you have to be rigorous about what you do. But when you focus only on the bottom line, the single bottom line that most organizations look at, revenues and profit at the end of the day, it's a one-dimensional game. What we believe is that there's really two dimensions. There's the financial and fiscal responsibility that we have, and we have to be rigorous with that. But on the flip side, we also have a social responsibility. And social responsibility in our case is about having a positive impact. And we looked at having a positive impact. It's really broken down to 3 areas. How do we impact our employees positively? How do we impact our clients positively? And how do we impact the community positively? That is built into everything that we do. So we really refer to this as having a double bottom line, a social impact bottom line and a financial fiscal bottom line. And we manage both of them. You got to look at both, but the second one is what if you do that, impossible things become very ordinary.
Something we hear a lot about, a phrase, and it comes up on this show, the skills gap. And I know it's something you've spent a lot of time thinking about at Atrion. Before we go to a break, I want to hear a little about, do you see a skills gap? And what is that? You know, people hear it's become almost a buzzword. What does that actually mean? What are we talking about?
So there is a true skill gaps in the state and across the country. The first part about the skill gaps is that when we look at our industry, we're very technical. A lot of people have the technical skills or some aptitude for that technical knowledge. The real problem is not just in that area, but it's really in the softer skills. So we've all known that technical geeky person that is super smart, super talented, but they can't communicate. They can't carry on a conversation. In the IT world, that used to be an acceptable quality 20 years ago. Today, the IT professionals need to be able to solve problems. They need to have critical thought. They need to be able to communicate in public in a much more mature and advanced professional way. So it's really a combination of some of the skills, technical skills they need just to do the job, plus the soft skills that make the
That's
full
interesting.
package.
So you're as concerned about a skills gap on things that you would need to know the guts of a computer to deal with as you are about the actual technical stuff you guys are doing.
Absolutely. When we look at our employees and the talent we bring into our, we look at 3 things. First of all, we look at the character. What kind of person is this person we're going to be hiring to bring in? The second is their professional or soft skills. And the third, and we put a lot of emphasis on it, but it's the least important in the evaluation process, is their technical skill. What do they physically know? And we find if you hire great quality people and they have some aptitude for skills, we can train them to be a little better public speaker, for example. We can really train them to be more technically oriented.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk much more with Tim Hebert about what they're doing at Atrion to try to get more people with the right skills that they need. So stick with us for that conversation and much more on Executive Suite. Perfect. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and later on in the show, we're going to hear from some of the opponents of that plan you've been hearing about to add table games at the Newport Grand gaming facility. We're going to talk with them about what they're trying to get people to focus on down there. But right now, we're talking to the CEO of Atrion, the networking IT company that's been growing pretty fast, Tim Hebert. And Tim, we were talking before the break about skills gap, the people trying to find the right people for your organization. And I you know, one thing I always hear people say, well, if there's a skills gap, just raise wages, pay people more, and you'll get the right people. And I know that not every CEO thinks they can do that or that that's effective. What do you think?
Well, I think there's a couple of challenges with just paying people more. First of all, the pool of talent in IT is actually shrinking. It's not a growing, and it's not even a static, it's a shrinking field. We have people that are retiring out of the industry, and we have fewer people coming into the industry. So it's a shrinking pool, paying more. What will happen is I pay someone a little bit more, someone else is going to come along and pay that person a little bit more to go someplace else. So we're just rotating the same people over and over again. So today there's a real challenge because there's not enough talent, period.
You actually think there's a shrinking pool of people? That is astounding with all the talk about computers and everything else going on. You think there's fewer people coming into IT?
Yeah, absolutely. It's projected that over the next 10 years, approximately 18 million people will exit the IT workforce in the world because of retirement. Then if you look at the number of men and women that are going into college in IT or technical careers, it's shrinking. You know, and if you look at the graduation rates, more women are graduating than men. Women traditionally aren't in the tech career fields. So the population of what's going through the college systems is actually coming smaller and smaller and smaller as well.
That has to be a top of mind concern as an executive, right, looking forward?
Yeah, exactly. What happens, it creates talent wars, right, where you're bidding for the same people over and over and over again, and the skills aren't getting better. They're just getting more expensive. And it's a hard way to run a business when you only focus on that.
Talent war sounds like an HR video game.
It does, yes.
So one of the ways you've dealt with this, you've created your own apprenticeship program, and it's inside Atrion. I always think apprenticeships, I think the construction trades, the building trades, those kind of things. Why did you think it was important here, and how does it work? Yeah,
so about 6 years ago, we were had critical positions that we couldn't fill, and the positions were taking us a year to find quality candidates to bring in. And jokingly one day I said, you know what, we could just hire someone off the street and train them in a year and have them there. And what turned into a joke turned into a kind of a plan to create an apprenticeship program. And we've done 5 stages of it now. We've beta tested it with 4 candidates to begin with, but it became a year-long process where we basically took people that had strong character, had strong professional skills, and they had little or no IT skills. And in a year, we made them better than most people we could hire off the street that had 3 to 5 years of experience. And it was a combination of hard classroom training. You know, it was like a boot camp type of environment. It was hands-on training through internship type of models. They were coached and mentored, so they had that kind of true trades kind of apprenticeship experience. They complete 2,000 hours of skilled training and work, and then they graduate into become a regular engineer, and they become highly, highly successful. They're very sought after in our industry. And we make them multidisciplined, where you can't really hire multidisciplined people off the street.
Now you're training these Swiss Army knife employees. Do you worry that they're going to get out of your expensive and terrific academy and then head right out to an employer who offers a little more money?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always a concern that you have, is that you invest in people. But our philosophy at Atrion is you got to give in life to get, and this is a way for us to have an impact on individuals. The average, salary a person's making before coming through the program is about $12 an hour. When they get into the program, they're brought to roughly $13 an hour. And by the time they graduate, they're over $20 an hour. Today, if they move from hourly to salary, the average salary is about $60,000 a year for the people who have gone through our program. So we've taken people that had no chance at higher incomes and put them into a high income career field. There's a lot of loyalty that gets going there. There's a lot of investments we make in them beyond the time that we just hired them and put them through the original training. So what we call it's career equity. Working 1 year for Atrion is like working 5 years someplace else. So it's very hard to get that same kind of equity in your career at this stage of their career as fast and as profitable for them.
Career equity, I've never heard that before. I have to ask you about a different topic, which is you are now on the board of the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation, which is of course the renamed version of the much maligned former Rhode Island Economic Development Corporation, the EDC, from after the 38 Studios deal. You've been on the board for a little while now. I mean, what's your thought about this organization? It gets a very bad rap. Do you think it's useful? Is it doing good work?
I think the state needs an organization like the Commerce Corporation. You need some people that are keeping their eye on how to grow the business economy from a lot of factors to attract new businesses in. How do we take great businesses like an Atrion and help develop them and become more powerful and employ more people? So you need an organization like that. I think that we're dealing with the history of what's happened 5 years ago that we can't shake. But I see a lot of positivity. The people on the board that the governor has put in place bring a lot of positive energy to the table. They're looking at collaborating more with organizations that are out there, trying to bring people together instead of creating division between organizations. They are working on trying to solve problems. How do we make it easier to do business in the state of Rhode Island? How do we track the results that we're doing? Up until a year ago, we had no way to track who called in, who came in for help, what kind of services we provided them, was there an outcome they were able to gain? And since the new board, we've actually put in new systems to track that. We've become more metric-driven, more data-driven. So I think we're in the early stages of this. We have some changes that are coming up that have been mandated in the beginning of this year. And I think those changes will help us really take this to the next level. We're in this kind of transformative stage right now. And it's been challenging, but I think we're also starting to see the results. It's going to be slow, but in the next couple of years, I think you're going to see some tremendous results from the organization.
All right, that's all the time we have. Before we go, I want to remind people, Tim was not on that board when they did the 38 Studios. Don't send him angry emails. He's one of the new faces. So yes. Thank you, Tim Hebert, for being with me from Atrion. But don't go away. When we come back, we'll hear from opponents of the Newport Grand table games plan and what they're concerned about. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and right now I want to welcome onto the show two representatives from the advocacy group down in Newport, City by the Sea, opposing the addition of table games at Newport Grand. And they are Liz Tabor and Bob Steele from Citizens Concerned About Casino Gambling. Liz, Bob, thank you for being with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we heard a few months back from Joe Paolino. We heard about the former mayor of Providence, his pitch. He's got the legislation. It's now a fight on the ground in Newport with the voters. But before we talk about it briefly, Bob, people might recognize you because you are, in fact, a former member of Congress.
I was a member of Congress from Connecticut, that's right.
What years?
1970 to 75, and I was a nominee for governor of Connecticut.
Do you miss the day-to-day grind of politics? You wish you were still down there in D.C.?
No.
An easy, succinct answer that I bet we all understand. And Bob actually wrote a book here, The Curse, a novel, which is about basically the concerns about what happens to a small New England town when this casino gambling comes in. Give people a sense, what was the issues you were trying to portray in here about what happens when this comes in?
Well, the book is a cautionary tale in many ways about what happens when the casinos come in. And, Rhode Island officials have used what happened in Connecticut as a strong reason for legalizing gambling here in Rhode Island. But one wonders if they've looked at what's happening in Connecticut recently. Connecticut's casinos are in serious trouble at the present time. They're losing jobs, they're losing income. The amount of money going to the state of Connecticut is down 35%. This, of course, is happening in other places in the country, including right now in Atlantic City. We've had a sharp spike in the number of Connecticut citizens seeking treatment for gambling addiction. Our economy in southeastern Connecticut has been sharply skewed toward low-paying, low-wage service jobs. And those jobs, incidentally, are becoming fewer and fewer all the time. And the casinos are going increasingly to part-time jobs in order to lower overall wage costs and get rid of benefits.
Liz, that's the bad scenario he's seen in Connecticut. So what, I bet it echoes some of those concerns, but what are the concerns you're trying to highlight to Newport voters about this plan to bring the table games to Newport Grand?
Well, one of the things is that Newport has a very thriving economy. And certainly the history of casinos has been to go into areas that really had very little economic opportunities, were seeking to cover budgetary gaps that they couldn't quite fill any other way, and succumb to the temptation. Once government partnered, in particular, with the gaming companies, suddenly there was massive incentive to move it along. And in Newport, the economy has been thriving. There's limitless opportunities for different businesses to do very well, and gaming seems that it will take from that as opposed to add to the community.
And you referenced one of the concern there, and I want to put the question to you, Bob, because we hear it constantly from around officials. Gaming, the third biggest source of state revenue. We have to have this money to fund public services, and that's why voters, almost with a gun to their heads, the budget won't be balanced unless you pass it. I mean, what do you make of that argument?
Well, let's think about that for a minute. Rhode Island right now, its general revenue budget depends on gambling for 12% of the money it brings in. It depends on gambling 3.5 times more than Connecticut does. What's going to happen when other casinos come in? For example, Massachusetts, the latest polls, just a poll on the last day, shows that the casinos are well ahead in Massachusetts. If
That's in the referendum on whether to allow them.
Exactly. Now, if Massachusetts builds these casinos, what's going to happen to Rhode Island's casinos? If Rhode Island becomes even more dependent on gambling, you're going to have a massive hit to your budget. You're going to have a budget crisis here. So I think that your point is very, very well taken. The fact of the matter is Rhode Island is already far too dependent on gambling. To put a casino or to expand casino gambling in Rhode Island would just make you that much more vulnerable to the decline that's now beginning to happen around the country.
Liz, are there specific concerns that your group has about the Paolino plan, or is this the same? It doesn't matter, you could have the quote-unquote best plan in the world and you'd have the same concerns. Are there specifics in this plan you think are worrying?
Well, it certainly doesn't help. The holes in the plan, there are, in fact, one of the councilors, one of our city council who voted for this plan to move forward and to be placed on the referendum has just come out withdrawing her support from this plan because she said she could not support the inaccuracies of the brochures that were being mailed around to all of the Newport voters, misstating that Newport is guaranteed money. There are no guarantees. Newport doesn't start getting any of the revenues they promise until likely 2018, once they've spent $40 million. There's no guarantee they're going to spend $40 million. We don't get paid until they're complete with the project. I've seen development jobs being a real estate broker that can be dragged out for a very long time. So there's too many gaps in trusting simply what's going to happen here, and without knowing how the Massachusetts vote is going to go, particularly with the Fall River proposal for a $750 million new casino to be built. I think $40 million is a drop in the bucket and lipstick on a pig.
Bob, and I'm sure Paolino will have a comeback on that one as always, but you also hear the argument about jobs. Rhode Island has been hit harder than almost any state in the Great Recession, and Mayor Paolino has said fairly eloquently, this place is going to close if you don't allow me to do this and my partners, and this way not only will it stay and you keep those jobs, we'll be adding more jobs. I mean, what about that argument? What do you think of that?
Well, let's look at the economics of casinos. First of all, according to the best studies that are out there, a casino like the expanded casino that is proposed for Newport, that type of casino's cost to benefit ratio over time to the community is more than 3 to 1. In other words, the costs to the community are more than 3 times the benefits. So first of all, the overall long-term impact, economic impact on the area is negative. Secondly, those jobs are low-paying, low-wage service jobs for the most part. When you take Connecticut, for example, that is the case in Connecticut. And increasingly, as I said, the casinos are laying off people. We're having layoffs at both casinos in Connecticut. They are increasingly going to part-time jobs in order to get rid of medical and other benefits. These are not the kind of jobs you build a strong community or a strong state on. And all you have to do is look at Atlantic City right now, for example. 4 casinos going out of business. They're losing 8,000 jobs in the last few months, given what is happening at the present time. Their grand list is going to be down by some $2 billion. So the casinos initially are quite successful. They're new, they're glitzy. People say, yeah, I got to check this place out, etc. And then they start to decline. And as they decline, as we're seeing in Connecticut, it has a very, very negative impact on the entire economy.
You know, one of the pieces of this that's made news just in, I think the last week or two I've been reading about it at least, is and I want to bring people along with me, there's not going to be a separate ballot question only in Newport, because the whole state has to vote, including Newport, but then in the past we've had a separate question, but do you want them in Newport just for Newport voters? Why is your group and the folks with you upset the fact that it'll just be one merged question deciding the whole thing?
Well, the first issue is trust. There's been very little trust with the way the General Assembly has gone about this. No Newport voters requested this, suggested this, or were informed about it. Our local canvassing board was not informed. Our city councilors were not informed. We actually found out about it when we called just before we ran all of our marketing materials to say vote no on question 8, the local ballot, and found out indeed, no, that's not going to appear on the ballot, and nobody was told about it. It's a very big issue because in particular we found out that there were 250 more votes to reject the casino on the 2012 vote than there were on the state ballot. There are quite a few locals who only vote local. That island mentality still holds strong, and while there seems to be a sense that it was done to streamline the ballot, I'm not quite sure how many other initiatives Mr. Gallison has submitted to streamline other citizens' ballots, but it wasn't appreciated how it was handled, and the impact to Newporters would not be helpful.
All right, that's all the time we have this week. I want to thank Liz Hebert, Bob Steele for joining me to talk about their concern on the table games down in Newport. And of course, we'll all be watching the results as they come in. That's in the November election, not next week's primary for down there, because it lost last time pretty narrowly. So something to watch. Stick with us this week and every week on Executive Suite.